So not everybody can afford a super high-end clean matching build, and you know what? In this video, we're going to show you that it doesn't have to suck to hodgepodge all your parts together and scavenge them from a variety of different areas. This video is brought to you in part by LIQMAX. LIQMAX is a leading manufacturer of high-performance PC hardware, including their well-built, budget-friendly CYBERBRON and MARBLEBRON series of power supplies, along with their new LIQMAX 3 Series AIOs, now available in white. For more information, please check out the link in the description below. So there's an unfortunate trend I've noticed in the PCMR world. It's the fact that some people feel like certain parts become like almost a status symbol, that if you don't have this part, you suck or you're crap for some reason, and that's bullshit. In all honesty, we are a society of PC master race, community, like people. We need to stick together regardless of your specs and hardware and show unity for the platform itself, because you're going to turn away people who are interested and want to get into the PCMR, but are afraid of either getting crapped on because someone's like, oh, well, you don't have this, you're nothing. And you really shouldn't be that way. We all need to show some respect to the people who have these Frankenstein, thrown together rigs. And that's what I'm doing today in this video. The parts you see in front of me are a hodgepodge of either leftover parts, used parts, hand-me-down parts, whatever, and a few new bits to complete the rig. And that's what a lot of people start off with. And I'm going to show you today that it doesn't suck to have a hodgepodge build. And that's where I'm going to call this the scavenger build, because this part's scavenged from a variety of areas, and that's what a lot of people do for their first build. It's not always, you just dish out the money and you have all the highest, latest, and greatest stuff. So let's go ahead, let's talk about what we have here. All right, so in the spirit of the build, like I said, this is the hodgepodge. It's a bunch of parts scavenged from a variety of different areas, and we're going to start going through what we got. So starting off, we have an i5-6500 that I pulled out of a Dell Optiplex that I had lying around that I wasn't using. 4 cores, 4 threads, 3.2 gigahertz base clock, 3.6 gigahertz boost clock, which is going to be plenty fine for gaming. Again, these were decent processors. Intel's done decent over the last several generations regardless, maybe not compared to Ryzen, but during this generation, this was still a very respectable processor for what it is. RAM. Again, in the spirit of the build, we have a 4 gigabyte stick taken out of the Dell Optiplex that came from. It's DDR4, it's 2133. Then we have another 8 gigabytes of DDR4 at 2133 that came with the motherboard when I bought it on eBay. So this was kind of a toss-in, so let's hope it works. Storage-wise, we have 240 gigabyte SSD from Inland, which you get from like Micro Center, or you can find them on Amazon as well. This is going to be our boot drive, and it should be plenty fine for that. Pending we don't clog it up with a whole bunch of random stuff, but this should be more than enough to have a boot drive, get your Windows and any of your Discord, basic programs, things like that on. For game storage, we're only doing a 500 gigabyte hard drive because, again, this is a scavenger build, hence the name Scavenger. This will fit a handful of games on it, depending on the size of the game. I know some games are freaking a quarter terabyte now. So you may have to do some uninstalling, installing, etc. But you can always upgrade it later down the road. But again, this is enough to get us going depending on the games you play. The motherboard that I was briefly mentioned is the Gigabyte 110M-A. It's a weird motherboard. It's only as wide as an ATX. It's as long as like a micro ATX. I'm pretty sure it's considered like a micro ATX board, but it's just very skinny. So it's going to look a little off place in the rig, but again, scavenger build. Power is being handled by the LIQMAX MARBLEBRON. It's a 550 watt, which is more than enough for what we're working with today. These are great power supplies. They're 80 plus bronze. They have all black cables. This one is semi-modular, which is another pro. So again, check it out. There will be links in the description below. These are awesome for the price that they're asking for them. GPU wise, we have the Asus 1060 3 gigabyte that I had in the last video. We're gonna do a mild refresh on this guy. We're gonna pull the cooler off, gonna clean it out, make sure there's no dust clogging it and causing it to get overheated or anything like that. And we're gonna repaste it with a Kingpin KPX, which might help bring a little bit of extra performance there. Not 110% sure, it should, but we'll find out. The CPU is being cooled by the Cooler Master i71C, which is probably one of the only things they make that's not called Cooler Master. Again, it's a mild step up over the stock Intel cooler. Stock Intel cooler has a crappy little disc of metal and a fan on top of it. This is better. It's got more of a traditional fin stack, and it's actually got this cone around it, which is great because if you've seen the new LGA 1700 coolers, they're like made exponentially better by putting a piece of paper through the fin stack to channel air over the processor. So go Cooler Master, simple design, they're cheap, they're like 20 bucks new, I think, a lot of times. And we're gonna cram, and I don't really mean cram that much because a lot of these are small parts, into this, which is the LIQMAX F01. It's aRGB, and I say that because it comes with 4 fans. 3 140 millimeters in the front, which is great, and it's a mesh front panel, and 120 in the rear. Again, aRGB. I don't know if it's proprietary or if it's just like one of those ones where I know there is a button you can click to change the RGB, but I don't know if there's any like motherboard control. Not that that motherboard has aRGB control, but it may, but I didn't look at it. But yeah, we'll find out. Either way, we'll note that as we go through. But this is a full ATX case, so this will fit a full-size ATX motherboard. So a lot of this stuff's gonna look small in here, but again, that's okay. It's a scavenger build. So let's go ahead and let me shut up for a little bit here and we'll start building it. Alrighty guys, so I'm gonna try to wrap this one up as fast as possible. I got a little bit of information I want to run through here before we do that, but jumping into it. So depending on the title, this was anywhere from 5 to 20-ish% lower than my test bench with the 1060 in it. That's probably in part due to the fact this has lower clock speeds because it's a older Intel chip, and the fact that the memory was slower at 2133. That makes more of a big difference on Ryzen versus Intel, but I'm sure it played a small factor here. Overall, was very happy with this. This would be a great entry-level kind of build for anybody trying to get into PC gaming. Mind you, again, you can ideally choose a better selection of parts, but for an hodgepodge like scavenger build, I think it turned out pretty well. Overall, performance-wise, again, like I said in the 1060 build, because of the card, any single-player AAA titles, or any AAA titles in general, you're going to have some challenges there, unless you like really crank the settings down. But a lot of your esports stuff is really well. That's where this actually was closer in performance to the test bench with the 1060 versus this. A couple build notes. One, this has a decent, it's cheap design, but it has a decent little swing out door, which is kind of nice. Not that you're going to really use that a lot, but if you're in a really hot environment, you can open that up easily just to let more ventilation in. The fans themselves perform well. You are limited on the RGB adjustability because these all have Molex connectors, which is my biggest qualm that I have with a lot of this build. Top filter comes out. It's actually just a little magnetic flip-on one. The front panel comes off and you can clean that relatively easily. You can remove the filter if you like. You're gonna have to like pry the tabs and whatnot, but it is possible. One weird issue I had, which I think is partially because of the motherboard, not so much the case, is because this is that weird little ITX Mini DTX Micro ATX weird screwy stupid motherboard design. This specific cooler with this design was actually pressing against the rear fan here. Like literally it was in the fan blades pressing on it. So that just wasn't gonna work. Hence why I put the exhaust fan on the top there, which is fine. It's not going to make a huge difference in any kind of performance or temps or anything because the system's not going to be super hot. And with three 140s kicking in the front, it's going to be a positive pressure build, and it's going to push air out the rear and push air out the front. I can actually feel air coming out, but it's probably because of the pass-through here. I don't necessarily recommend this case unless it's the only one available and you're really, really, really tight on budget, because there's a lot of bigger brands like Lee & Cooler Master that have things that are under $100 that would probably do a better job. The vertical mount here is super chintzy. These PCIe slot covers in the back are all those pop-out ones that you just twist and bend and flex and break them out, and then they're done, they're gone forever. The overall metal's very thin, so if you were trying to do a vertical mount, you could with a lightweight 2-slot card, whether it's ITX or like kind of a more standard length. I wouldn't go for anything super long and heavy because it's just going to probably flex and bend, and it's not something you're going to want to have to deal with. I had a few other notes here. Oh, 3.5 millimeter, well, not 3.5 millimeter, 3.5 inch hard drive mounts. So if you're going to run a spinning drive in this, don't. Unless you're going to rig some kind of other mount up. It has a mount at the top of the basement and one at the bottom of the basement, which works fine to physically mount the hard drive. It stays out of the way, it's nice and compact. The problem is with the way all the bends and stuff are in the back, trying to plug in your power cable to the hard drive is a freaking nightmare. I literally had it in the top, I'm like, oh, that'll work good. I tried to plug it in, and literally the cable was like pressing down because it was hitting against the top of the basement. It's just, they could probably finesse it and fine tune a little bit and it'll work fine, but where it's at right now, no. And the same thing happened at the bottom. Now it was too close to the bottom and the cables were pinching and wedging, and it was a nightmare, and I'm not 110% happy with it, but it works, it's functioning. Over a long-term period of time, the cables might get a little funky or you might actually damage the drive, so not sure how you feel about that. I'm not in love with it, but it is what it is. So overall, again, the build itself, it's not bad. Obviously, with more money and picking all of your parts, you can definitely make something better. But that's one of those things where, being part of the PC Master Race, we need to respect each other's builds. We can't crap on each other because they didn't do what we think, we should do. You do what you want to do. Somebody else says something different, that's okay. That's their call. Mind you, there are some people who do some really dumb stuff, and you're like, why the hell would you do that? Like trying to clean the back of a processor with a toothbrush, which doesn't turn out well for anybody, but look it up. But outside of that, I think it's a decent build. It'd be a great way to start, and that's the thing. And then get your fingers wet, and then you can tinker with it and do a little upgrades and whatnot, and then throw 6700 in there and maybe a 1070 or something, and work your way up into becoming like a full-blown, budget-breaking PC enthusiast. So we all have to start somewhere. But outside of that, guys, let me know what you think about this build. Let me know if you've had something similar, or if you're working with something similar currently. Drop in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. And yeah, let me know what you think. Outside of that, guys, yeah, please hit that like, subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next one.